Hi besties, welcome back to the channel. Alright, take a breath with me because we need to talk about this last episode of Sister Wives. And honestly, not so much for what we saw, but for what we didn't see. Or maybe what was quietly revealed. Or maybe the spice that should have been there but somehow wasn't. And yes, all of it matters. Here's what's been sitting heavy with me. In the summer of 2025, right up until the moment Janelle went back to that church, she hadn't been part of it for over a decade. A church that, let's be very clear, is not just controversial, but illegal. A church run by men with multiple wives. A church where one of its leaders is currently being sued by his own wife for fraud, just trying to get her fair share of property. And that man signed a piece of paper claiming he had the authority to sever an eternal bond between Janelle and Kody. Pause right there. Can you imagine that? A regular human being believing they have the power to cut an eternal spiritual connection. What does that even say about how someone views themselves? Because that's not just confidence, that's bordering on playing God. Now listen, I know Meri got a release. I know Janelle got one too. But what really doesn't sit right with me is how no one pushes back on how absurd this all is. No one challenges the idea of Janelle returning to a church she hasn't believed in or participated in since around 2010. A church with serious allegations of child abuse. A church whose former leader, as recently as 2021, was accused by his own daughter and nieces of sexual assault. A church that effectively cut ties with the Browns. Let's not forget, this is the same church where Lemoyne Jensen stood at the pulpit and told Kody in front of everyone that his family was cursed, that God had given him a prophecy, that going public would destroy them. And guess what? The church didn't excommunicate them, but they were done with them. Meri stayed loosely connected until about 2016, even helping with youth groups. But Janelle? She was long gone. So for Janelle, who has gone through an actual legal divorce, to believe that this man, who is currently being sued by his own wife, who has abandoned multiple women, who left his first wife before entering polygamy, that this man has the authority to declare spiritually divorced retroactively? To say, you were divorced even before you knew it, despite the fact that she left Kody in 2022 and didn't even live in the same state? We need to talk. Because then Kody says, I thought you'd be more mad. And I'm sitting here thinking, why would she be? Janelle herself says she doesn't care, that she's fine, that they can have their little life over there and be happy. And honestly, good for her, if that's true. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. It doesn't make me happy to say this about Janelle, because I like Janelle. But she often takes this moral high ground about her faith, about her intelligence. She repeatedly reminds people that she's logical, that she's very smart. And here's the thing. Truly smart, logical people don't usually need to announce it. They just live it. Janelle has now said to Christine, to Meri, and to friends that Kody and Robyn can have each other. And that phrasing is interesting, almost like she's granting permission. Like she's handing Kody over to Robyn. And that's what feels off to me. If Janelle is truly done with Kody, then she shouldn't care who he's with. She shouldn't care whether Kody and Robyn stay together or fall apart. Being done means being done, not releasing him, not commenting on him, just walking away. And that's the part that keeps tugging at me. But here's the part that I can't quite shake. A piece of me really believes that if Kody hadn't played favorites, if he had just kept up whatever version of fairness Janelle had learned to live with, which honestly wasn't great to begin with, she probably would have stayed. And that's uncomfortable to admit, but it feels true. Each of these women left for different reasons. They all hit different breaking points. Take Christine. Her line in the sand was faith. She stopped believing in the church, stopped believing in the doctrine. And once Kody cut off physical intimacy with her, there was nothing left holding her there. She didn't believe spiritually, and now there was no marriage, in any real sense. On top of that, Kody stopped showing up for her kids. He wasn't there for Isabel's surgery. He wasn't emotionally present when her children needed him. Christine spent her entire marriage as the non-legal wife, pushed to the side. Once the faith was gone, she was done. Janelle's breaking point looked different. For her, it wasn't about faith at first. It was about dignity. She didn't want to be second best. She didn't want to stay in a situation where Kody got love, attention, and happiness, while she was expected to accept scraps. She said herself that Isabel's surgery was a turning point. And during COVID, she realized something big, that she could actually do all of this on her own. She didn't need Kody the way she thought she did. Meri's story is different still. She legally divorces Kody in 2015, and honestly, that might have been the moment she should have left. But she didn't. Instead, she stayed in a marriage with no affection, no intimacy, and no real hope for 8 long years. Kody kept her hanging on, just enough to keep her there. For Meri, leaving wasn't about anger. It was about finally accepting reality. She talks in this episode about being 19 years old when she made this commitment, feeling like she had to stay loyal to a decision she made as a teenager. And it took her years to realize that she didn't have to stay bound to a choice she made when she was basically a kid. She was allowed to grow. She was allowed to move on. Now, to be fair, I don't know how much Meri was truly trying to reconcile with Kody behind the scenes versus what we saw on camera. But what we do know is this. Meri left the faith. She no longer believed. And then Kody took her equity from the sale of her home and handed it straight to Robyn so Robyn could have that big house. Then he turned around and told Meri she would only get 2 acres on Coyote Pass. No discussion, no negotiation, even though Meri had helped pay for that land. That was it. She was done being used, done being financially drained, done pretending there was still a family unit when it was already falling apart. And once she walked out the door, she moved fast. She got her release quickly. Clean break. But Janelle? Janelle was different. She didn't leave with clarity and closure. She left after a blow-up fight. And even then, did she really leave? There was no clear conversation on camera saying, "It's over." No formal acknowledgement. Just a massive argument around Christmas. Mostly about the kids. That fight mattered. Kody tells her she needs to be more like Robyn. More obedient. More submissive. Meanwhile, Janelle is furious because she, too, gave up her own equity from her Vegas home to help Kody and Robyn. And still, Kody won't build her a house on Coyote Pass. She's told there's no family money for it. No support. No plan. And that's where things really start to crack. Kody won't even pay off the property. Janelle is living in an apartment while Kody is sitting comfortably in a mansion. Her children are completely estranged from him at this point. And instead of trying to repair those relationships, he's actively bullying them. That alone would be enough for most parents to walk away for good. And yet, she stops talking to him. But for months, she never actually says it's over. She just says they had a fight. There's no clear conversation where she tells Kody, "We're done." No clean break. No line drawn in the sand. What's even more surprising is that up until last season, and really right up until the end of 2024, Kody was still talking about reconciling with her. This is despite the fact that Janelle had already started moving to North Carolina in 2023 and didn't even live in the same state anymore. They hadn't kissed in years. They weren't living together. They weren't functioning as a couple in any real-world sense. But spiritually, she still considered herself married to him, right up until she got that release. And that's the part that stops me in my tracks. Based on some of the things Janelle has said, like they can have each other, it really does sound like if Kody had suddenly come to his senses. If he had accepted her for who she was and stopped demanding she turn into Robyn, she might have gone back. If things had returned to some version of normal, she may have stayed. And I think that's exactly why it took her 3 years to get a spiritual release. Still, it's wild to me that she went through all of that instead of just saying the marriage was over when, frankly, it clearly was. What this episode showed me is that Janelle didn't believe it was over. She truly considered herself married until Dave Watson said she was released. And that's shocking, especially coming from someone who presents herself as logical and pragmatic. She even says things like, "There's just so much I want to do first. I've got the farm to get going. I'm not rushing anything." She talks about how, even though she's officially divorced for just a few hours, it feels like it's been over for a long time. If she meets someone organically, she's open, but she's not running toward marriage. Now let's pause right there. Janelle has spent this year defending polygamy. She's gone so far as to say it should be legal, that men should be allowed to have multiple legal marriages because, in her mind, that would somehow prevent men from treating women badly. She said she would live polygamy again. She claims she still believes in it, even now. So here we are in the summer of 2025, and she's saying she feels single now. Single now. Divorced just a few hours. But here's the hard truth. Janelle was never legally married to Kody. Not ever. And I say this as a married woman who believes deeply in commitment, legality, and the sanctity of marriage. Janelle was never legally recognized as Kody's wife. She joined a made-up religion led by deeply disturbing men who bartered daughters, abused power, and sold women a fantasy about the celestial kingdom. She was told she was married, and she believed it, even though she wasn't. Brainwashing is powerful. And yes, she had been married before, which makes this even harder to reconcile. I'm not saying her relationship wasn't real. It absolutely was. She loved him. She built a life with him. But it was not a legal marriage. It was an illegitimate relationship with a man who was already legally married. And acknowledging that doesn't erase her pain, it just tells the truth. And she keeps saying that the legal marriages never mattered. But they do matter. They mattered a lot. She watched Kody legally divorce his first wife and then legally marry his fourth wife. He never once legally married her. Not once. He never bound himself to Janelle in that way. He never did it for Christine either. And whether people like this word or not, in Kody's world and in that church's doctrine, Christine and Janelle were never equal wives. They were what the church calls spiritual wives, which in practice means women with less standing than the legal wife. That's not my label. That's theirs. And in real-life terms, yes, that makes them closer to mistresses than wives. That's painful to say, but it's the truth of how the system works. So when Janelle says she hasn't been with Kody since 2022, but she's only been divorced for a few hours, it's heartbreaking. It really is. And I wish so badly that TLC would allow a real counter-narrative here. Not just this quiet acceptance of something that shouldn't be normalized. Because it's dangerous to pretend that a church can simply declare people married when they're not. It's dangerous to accept the idea that a man can have multiple wives without legal responsibility. And it's dangerous that a woman feels she has to ask permission from a criminal organization just to be free. This isn't anger at Janelle. It's anger at the system. These kinds of churches do not deserve a place in society. They are harmful to women. They are dangerous to children. And if Sister Wives has shown us anything, it's that polygamy is abusive. It creates hierarchy. It creates inequality. It forces women into competition. They turn on each other. Jealousy is framed as a moral failure instead of a normal human emotion. And worst of all, women are taught that their eternal fate is tied to a man, so they can't leave. They can't date. They can't choose themselves. Even now, when Janelle says she's not rushing into dating, rushing? She hasn't been with Kody since 2022. Rushing would have been having a boyfriend 3 years ago. What we're seeing isn't caution. It's indoctrination. And that makes me sad. It makes me sad that these churches exist. It makes me sad that TLC helped make this belief system feel mainstream, almost legitimate, as if a spiritual release is something we should respectfully accept. No. What we should be recognizing is how abusive it is that she ever had to ask for one. It's abusive to tell a woman she's a wife when she isn't. It's abusive to tell her she needs to share her husband to get into heaven. It's abusive to convince her that enduring pain and jealousy will somehow make her better, holier, worthy of becoming a goddess someday. That's not faith. That's control. And I truly hope that with time, distance, and space, Janelle wakes up. I hope she gets therapy. I hope she gets support. And I hope if she's done with the show, that she really walks away and heals. But I do find it deeply concerning that she's charging people for life coaching while still this indoctrinated. That worries me. At the end of the day, none of this was for the greater good. Every single one of these women is a victim. Yes, even Robyn. This was a massive social experiment that failed. And in failing, it exposed abuse while dangerously normalizing something that should never be popular. So, I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. If this resonated, give the video a thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed and hit that bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, besties!